My hat! Here I've opened bag 2. So bag 2, you're going to get this little bag of hardware. Just keep track of it. This is one of the things I've associated, just like the bearings. You're going to have a bunch of parts that you're going to have to keep track of because you will need them in later bags. Unlike other manufacturers, for example Tekno gives you the parts that you need per bag. So bag 2 will only have the parts for that build. Now these little guys, actually I will leave them. Those are tiny. So 2.1. And that is important, 2.1. Keep that in mind. I will leave these here as well. Because there is a revision to the manual, and I don't know why. Maybe they made a mistake with the manual, or maybe they just copied everything from the 6.1, thinking it would be the same. But there is that little tiny sheet that was included that I will show you once we get to it. But here, just make sure you file down the excess material from removing this from the spur tree. Alright, there we go. Actually, the very first kit, now that I think about it, was actually an HPI. It was an HPI nitro car, the RS43 SS. I think in the previous video I said it was a buggy from Team Associated, but no, it was actually an HPI. But the Associated was the first one with hex screws. That HPI still used Phillips screws. Alright, now the servo horns, I will be using the 25 tooth because of the type of servo that I'm using. But here's the thing. I'm going to use this for now because I don't think I have an aluminum servo horn that fits. For example, this one here, it would be way off. Eventually, I'm going to have to find this in aluminum. Why? They break. Servo horns will break. It will be the first thing you'll probably break, and it's annoying. So might as well just replace it with aluminum. These arms, actually, they come off pretty clean. So just trim everything off, and these pieces as well. Well, it comes off very clean. And this is something I must say that I do like about Associated. And I do like the quality of their plastics. Associated does have very good quality plastics. So it's definitely worth the investment. For these, I will be using a knife. Just when you use a knife, just make sure that you're using a sharp blade. And the reason why is you have a lower risk of cutting yourself than if you use a dull blade. So you have to apply less force. Now, if you are a younger kid that's watching this and you're thinking of building, have an adult help you. Use adult supervision, especially when handling sharp objects. Just have the adult do it. That's what adults are for, I hear. They're to help kids out. Maybe. I don't know. I'm an adult. Alright, so at this point, step one. So step one, if I were to move this up, we are going to mate the steering to the chassis. So here we go. We will be grabbing this. Now, this here, you have to pay attention to it. So there's a little arrow. So the arrow points in which direction. So you see at 25, that's 25 degrees, and that says 30. So that will make the difference. Now, I will be building this with the 25 pointing forward because that is the stock setting. And that being said, this goes underneath. And then your steering goes right over here. Now, one of the things to note is, see those little stubby bits? They're going to go in the rear holes. So it's just going to mount in there in the chassis. Right in there. And that is it. So this will go in here, and you will need your hardware, which I poured out completely. I should have organized this a little better, to be honest. Now I have to look for those screws. And the screws that I need, let's see, it says 16 millimeter. I shall need 16 millimeter screws. It says ×2, so I guess we're only installing the rear screws for now. And the 16 millimeter screws are going to be countersunk screws, and these appear to be 16 millimeter. And yes, they are. So we will grab those. It's the longer ones. Now you do have some other countersunk screws over here, but we can always just measure to be sure. So that appears to be 16 millimeter, unless there's a different one. Yeah, they're the same. So these are the same. Those are probably the front ones. There we go. I need a shorter ruler. At some point I'll get one. I have to convince my wife to increase my allowance. Let's see. Alright, so I'm going to start here. Flip this over, and I will be fastening this to the rear for now. There we go. And I'm going to start the other one. And again, when you're tightening these, just tighten them by feel. If you use power tools, just be careful, get them close, and then maybe finish them off by hand. Unless you're very, very familiar with your tools, and you're very familiar as well with the material that you're drilling into, because that does make a difference. And it depends on the power tool that you're using too, obviously. Some of the lower volt power tools, they probably don't have enough torque to strip the plastic, but many others do, so keep that in mind. Alright, and there we go. Alright, so that's the first step. So the first thing you have to decide is 25-30 degrees, and it just depends on the setup and how you will be running. For now, we'll just leave it at 25. And here, let me just double check this manual. Alright, so this is going to apply once we get to step 6. So as of now, we can ignore this here. And right now, on step 2, it looks like the side rails will be mounted along with the Nerf bars. So let's go ahead and grab the side rails. And these here, these are pretty easy. You just have to look at them and match them. I mean, this is like that game we used to play as children where we had to put the cube in the square hole, ball in the round hole, etc. I mean, if you could manage that when you were a child, you're going to manage these. I mean, there's no way you can flip them. But there we go. So these will be going here. And the screws that we will be needing, according to this, are going to be, oh wow, 10 millimeter. All right, so most of them will be 8 millimeter, except, right, is it 8? Let's see, so the front 4 will be 10, and there are 7 rear ones, 3 on the left side, 4 on the right side, that will be 8 millimeter, right here. So that being said, let's go ahead and start looking for them, and you're looking for the countersunk screws. That one's larger. Right, so the 8 ones are the short ones. Right, I'm missing 1. There it is. And here's the 10. All right. Go ahead and measure them. Eventually you'll get used to just seeing them. You'll be able to tell them apart. But here we go. So the 10s are going to go here, and then the short ones will go over here. Now, I'm wondering why it says to use 7 if there are a total of 8 holes. That's something I'm going to have to figure out later. 1, 2, 3. Maybe I'm doing these. Nope. No idea. But I will be getting started with the 10 millimeter. And one of the things that I'm doing is I'm just lining up the hole for that side rail and the chassis. It just makes it easier, and I'm not going to screw this all the way through. I'm going to get it close, but not perfectly tight. I want there to be just a little bit of play once I set all the screws in, and all the screws are just sat there. Then I'm going to go back and start tightening everything. All right. Now, one of the things that you will notice too from Team Associated is all of the screws are coated. There is a coating to the screws. You actually get really nice hardware with the kit. Now, how long is that coating going to last? Well, it depends how or where you run your vehicle. But usually the chassis is going to feel any impacts before the screws do. Here we go. And to be honest, the build for this truck and a build for a buggy, Team Associated buggy, for example, B6.2, the version 3 is out already, but the build is very similar. Think about this as a long buggy. All right, here we go. We are getting there. And let's see. So this is the right side, and so the right side should have another screw. So let me go ahead and place this one here. So it's the 10 millimeter, and then it calls for the other 8. And I am still wondering why on the left side it is not calling for that 4th screw. Well, guess I'll find out. But here I am supposed to place the 4th. And it is nice that Team Associated is making a kit, right? Team Associated is still making 2-wheel drive short course for competition. Because there aren't that many short courses, but I like them because you can get bodies that are realistic for short course. Buggies, I mean, there's nothing wrong with buggies. They're great RCs. Get a buggy if you like a buggy. But there is just something to be said about remote control vehicles with a realistic looking body. Something you can say, hey, I've seen that. Oops. And here we go. All right. And we'll do these. I will look for the 10 millimeter shortly. Oh, they're there. So hopefully some of you decide to invest in a higher end short course truck, and maybe you'll be building it along with these videos as you're watching them. Maybe you'll watch these videos, look at the build, and decide to build one. So don't be afraid. It just takes time and patience. And if you think you don't have the time and the patience, You probably do. You just have to say, I don't know, do a bag per day. You don't have to build the entire thing in one sitting. It does take quite some time. This is one of the reasons why I'm making this video, so that you get an idea of what it takes to build a kit, if you really want to build a kit. Something that happens to some people is, I think this is the one that is not supposed to go in. They will buy a kit and then get discouraged, never finish it. So hopefully with this video, you will be either encouraged or it will save you the time and you can just get an RTR. That's a possibility. But, you know, as long as you get in the hobby, stay in the hobby, you know, that's my goal. So it's the final screw that is not going to go in. So it's this one. This one does not go in on the left side. So if you look at the left side, that's the one that's not going in. And I believe it's probably going to be because that's where the fan is going to mount. My understanding is these, unlike the 6.1, you can mount a fan. Alright, so let's see, that's too long. That's the 10 millimeter. And I think I just saw and skipped over it. Here it is. And that's the 10 millimeter. And again, nose measure. Good. Now, when it comes to which short course to get, it really depends on what you're going for. There's a variety of brands that make short course trucks. Team Associated, obviously. Losi makes one. X-Ray makes one. Kyosho, well, Kyosho used to make one. I'm sure they still do. But for price point, Team Associated is a very good kit. You're looking at about $330 as of the time of this video, versus an X-Ray, which is over $400, for example. Here we go. All right, so side rails are there. Now we will have to install the Nerf bars. And the Nerf bars, there is a front and rear position. So these sharper angles, these go forward. Therefore, this here will be my right, and this will be my left. And one of the nice things is these just key right in, and that's it. And then all you have to do is just get 8mm screws, and let's see, it will be these here. Just pull them all out. That way I have them here, since I'm going to need them. Might as well separate them. Alright, that will go with that. And this will go here. Alright. And we'll just be needing 4 of them. And these Nerf bars are pretty good. They last quite a bit now. I've built many Traxxas trucks, have some, gave some to my nephews, and the Nerf bars always go, they always break, so then you end up getting different Nerf bars, usually the RPM ones. But on this truck, the Nerf bars are actually very good Nerf bars. They're durable. Screws in here, and there it goes. That's how you lose screws. Well, potentially. All right. Now, the other thing that I'm going to do to this chassis as well is I will be installing the foam strips for the battery. Now, the chassis, I cleaned it off camera and I haven't really rubbed my fingers through this here, so it should be fine. All right, and for these, so this is the way this one came. This is the first time I see an associated kit with the foam that's completely twisted, but these will just attach here. You just remove the backing and then just glue them on. Well, I guess I should say stick them on since you're not applying any glue. There's one. And the next one. Perfect. So at this point, we have completed step 2. And step 3 and 4, that has to do with the servo. So we will be taking care of that on the next one. Thank you so much.